Welcome, everyone, to the Stateless Atheist. Today I'm speaking to Assad Ahmed about Islam and his view, how Muslims are treated within the world, and some history of the Middle East. Welcome, Assad, again.
Welcome. How are you doing?
Can we start off by going over a few terms? Like, can you explain the difference between Sunnis and Shia?
Yes. Sunnis. So, like I said, it's a very political difference between Sunnis and Shias. Sunnis. Okay. There's a political difference between Sunnis and Shia. Sunnis are the people. It's all based off of the successor of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sunnis, they believe that the caliph after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Prophet Hazrat Abu Bakr. However, the Shias believe that the caliph after Prophet Muhammad should be Hazrat Ali. However, the caliph that succeeded Prophet Muhammad was Hazrat Abu Bakr. The majority of the people that are Muslim are Sunnis worldwide. It's estimated to be around 90%, while around like 8 or 9% of Muslims are Shias. There's a high concentration of Shias within nations such as Iran.
Okay, can you dig a little deeper into some other terms, like what a caliphate is and what jihad means?
Yeah, so a caliphate just really means an Islamic nation. It's nothing extreme or violent of the sort. It just means an Islamic nation. It's just one of those terms like jihad that has been demonized over the years and been given a negative connotation. And the word jihad doesn't really have like a violent aspect to it. It's just one of those terms that has been demonized by the media over the years. The word jihad just basically means revolution. It could be a peaceful revolution. It could be a violent revolution. It just means change.
What happened to your mic?
Is it not working?
It's a lot lower. There it goes.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Oh, okay.
So, explain what the daily ritual for Muslims are for prayer.
Yes. So the daily ritual for prayer for Muslims is that we pray 5 times a day. And those 5 times are divided out in different parts of the day. It starts from early morning, like around like 4 or 5 p.m. to up around in the evening.
And what are the 5 different types called?
Yeah, it's called Fajr, Dhikr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha.
Now, during prayer, what you have to get on your knees and face Mecca?
Yes, so basically what we do is we face Mecca and we start praying, but it's basically like a whole physical procedure. Like you basically stand up and pray, and then you get on your knees and then pray. Then you get up and then you stand up again and you pray. It's like a whole physical procedure, full physical ritual that you have to do.
How do Muslims generally find Mecca these days?
These days we have the technology to do so. We all have phones, so we could download an app that could locate Mecca for us.
So, what is the Islamic view of Christianity and Judaism?
The Islamic view of Christianity and Judaism is that I'm quoting straight from the Quran. They view them as brothers. They view Christians and they view Christians and Jews as brothers of God, just like they do within Islam.
How do Muslims generally think about Jesus Christ?
Muslims think about Jesus as another prophet within Islam, just like Moses. They give him the same form of respect as they do any other prophet. His respect is actually higher because of the things Jesus has done for us. We do, however, the only difference I would say that Muslims have of a view with Jesus that Christians do is that we don't view Jesus as divine, unlike Christians who do view Jesus as divine. We view Jesus as like a mortal man who was a prophet. However, we also do believe that the next prophet that will arrive in the future would be Jesus. But we do believe that when Jesus arrives back in the future, it would mark as the day of judgment.
So, how is Muhammad viewed in respect to Jesus Christ?
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is given a bit higher respect than Jesus because of the relevance he has within Islam. But like with all other things, he is just about as much of a prophet as Prophet Muhammad is, Jesus Christ.
Can you explain, after you say Muhammad, everything, what you're saying there and why?
Yeah. So when we say Prophet Muhammad, when we say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after Prophet Muhammad, it basically is a way of giving respects to the Prophet.
What does it mean? When you translate it to English.
It means peace be upon him.
Now, just curious, if someone didn't know Arabic, are they allowed to say it in English, or do they have to say it in Arabic?
Either or is fine. Like if you don't know how to say it in Arabic, you can say it in English. If you don't know how to say it in English, you can say it in Arabic. There's not really a specific preference to it. You can say it however way you want it.
Okay. Can you explain what Sharia law is?
Okay, so Sharia law is one of those things that's also been demonized by the media. When people think of Sharia law, they think of a bunch of violent theologist laws that are enforced by a almost imperialistic theocratic nation. However, what Sharia basically means is just a voluntary set of rules to follow within Islam. And it could be something as simple as following basic hygiene rules that are established within Islam. And most of these are mandatory, by the way. And none of these, however, overrule the nation's law. In fact, in the Quran, it specifically states that you have to follow your nation's law before following Islamic law. So, like for example, the laws, the rules and laws written in Quran, it does not overrule the laws within an America. So I have to follow the laws of an American first before I have to follow the laws and rules of Islam. And these are just really a voluntary set of rules. It's not mandatory. Most of these are just suggestions. It will state in the Quran which is mandatory and which is not.
Can you give examples of some mandatory ones and some non-mandatory ones?
Yes. So some of the mandatory rules within Islam is donation. You have to donate a certain amount of your wealth to the poor. that is considered a mandatory rule within Islam. And some non-mandatory rules are, well, for the women example, the veil. The veil is more of like the veil, which is the hijab, which is a headscarf you wear around your head, or the burqa, which is the face veil. Those are really suggestions. Really, it's not really a mandatory set of rules that you have to follow. It's more of a suggestion to women as a sign of modesty. However, if a woman just want to wear the veil, she could choose not to wear the veil, and there would be no punishment to it.
Now, are those rules, the voluntary ones, any different for when you go to a mosque, or are they just a little stronger, more suggested?
Well, when you go to a mosque, it is more strongly suggested that you do wear a veil as a sign of respect to the mosque, as a sign of respect to the mosque. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of like you going. It's like going to an office wearing a suit. Like it's a sign of respect, really. You know, it's an appropriate attire, but you don't have to wear the veil if you're going to the mosque. It's not mandatory, but it's strongly suggested.
What is the Islamic views generally of ISIS and other radicals?
Most Muslims nowadays despise radical groups such as ISIS and Al Qaeda, mainly because we don't see them as groups who are blinded by religion, but we see them as just groups that are trying to gain power through violent means, and they use religion as an excuse. And it's not just the religion, and it's not just Islam. It's a perverted version of Islam that they use to justify their violent means. Whatever ISIS and Al Qaeda do, it's not the proper ways of Islam.
Now, I know Muslims, many of them dislike Saudi Arabia. Can you explain why and what are their views of Islam?
Yes, most Muslims dislike Saudi Arabia because we believe that their actions has done a lot of harm to the Middle East, to the Middle East as a whole. We believe that the wealth that they're gaining is off of the suffering of the Middle Easterners, and that the actions of Islam that they quote unquote follow is not the proper version of Islam, but a more ultra conservative version of it that is not really the proper procedure of Islam. And plus, there are a lot of things that the Saudis do that most Muslims despise. Like they take a lot of rules within Islam and they twist it to their means that they find that they find sustainable. However, most Muslims see as a way for them to justify their cruel means. And also, one of the things that they do despise that they do despise that the Saudis do is that they take Mecca. Well, they take the pilgrimage of Mecca, which is one of our pillars of Islam, a pilgrimage to Mecca, and they made it into a form of capitalized gain. They profitized it. It became difficult over the years to do a pilgrimage due to how expensive it is, and this is basically because of how expensive the Saudis made, and that's one of the reasons why we despise them as a whole.
What is the general Islamic view, Muslim view of Iran?
Iran is one nation that is majority Shia. So when we see Iran, we see a nation that is also radicalized. and has a really very cruel dictator, and and is a nation, but is a nation that is something that should be left alone, because as we've seen with nations such as Syria or Libya, overthrowing dictators is not really the best solution. Well, especially when it comes to the hands of foreign nations such as the U.S. The U.S. isn't really the best at overthrowing dictators and establishing governments, because we've seen it's been unsuccessful in both Syria and Libya. I do believe that there should be some change within Iran, but that change should go with the Iranian people. They should be the ones to decide what change should come within their regime. They're the ones that should bring change, not any foreign entity.
Can you explain the situation in Israel and Palestine?
Yeah. So the situation between Israel and Palestine is um, is also a very political one, so to speak. It's not a religious one. So you see, we first have to understand how the history of how Israel came to be. So after World War II, Britain decided to uh, split the already established Palestinian state into lands that would be occupied by Jewish settlers, and then those lands eventually became Israel. And then as the years went by, Israel has taken more and more lands from the Palestinian by force. And you also have to think about this: when we talk about Israel and Israelis, we're not talking about the Jewish community as a whole. We are talking about specifically a nation. We're talking specifically about a nation that, which by the way, most of them are half Jewish and half Arabs. They're not even full Jewish as a whole. So we're not talking about the Jewish community as a whole. And there's even Jews that are even against Israel, the actions of Israel, and actions of Zionism too.
Can you explain what Zionism is?
Zionism is a form of nationalism of Israel. They basically believe that the lands within the Israeli and Palestinian region should belong to Israel and nothing else. They seek to displace the Palestinian refugees and all lands within Palestine.
Do you agree with the two-state solution?
I believe it's a more practical solution. I think that it's impractical to establish one nation, whether it be Israel or Palestine, over another without causing some form of harm between the two. Like if you have a Palestinian state, it will harm the Jewish people. I mean, not the Jewish people, the Israeli people. It will harm the Israeli people. And if you establish an Israeli state, it will harm the Palestinian people. So if you establish a two-state solution and give back the property to the Palestinian people that it once belonged to, I feel like it would be a more practical solution that'll benefit the two.
Oh, now let's move into a little bit of a different area. Growing up in the United States, have you experienced any bigotry? Has it changed since 9/11 or anything like that?
Well, bigotry has certainly became a huge part of my life, especially after 9/11. I grew up. Me and my family, I was born in New York, so I was born in New York, and when 9/11 happened, it happened really close to me. I was in Yonkers at the time, and my mom worked in the city. So when 9/11 happened, it was a very tragic event for all of us, including Muslims. A lot of Muslims were very sad for what happened in 9/11. It was horrifying and tragic, but but we realized that this was just the beginning, uh, and not the end for us. We were facing actions and of hatred and bigotry for something that we didn't do, simply because we looked like the enemy. And this is something that I experienced as a kid growing up in public schools, to all the way working jobs. or just walking across the street, coming across a stranger, facing bigotry from them. And my parents faced bigotry too at their workplace too. And this is just a story of one Muslim experiencing bigotry. You're talking about many thousands of other Muslims, thousands and millions of other Muslims facing bigotry too, from ever since 9/11 occurred.
You consider yourself a libertarian. Can you explain a little bit more of your views? Like, where do you fit? Since that's actually a pretty broad tent.
Yes. So I consider myself a classical liberal, libertarian.
Can you explain that a little bit deeper? What a classical libertarian is, as opposed to just a libertarian?
Yeah. So a classical liberal libertarian is a form of libertarianism that specifies in following the it specifies in following laissez-faire free market capitalistic economic systems, and they also believe in not completely abolishing government, but reducing government to a point where it follows the basic guidelines of a society, such as having a court system, or having basic emergency systems like firefighters, police officers, and EMS and EMS too. So just the basic systems too. However, I have established modern some modern interpretations of libertarianism. I know UBI has started to become a big thing within libertarianism, so that's something that I've adapted as a whole. I feel like that UBI would be a great alternative to the welfare we have today. It's certainly an improvement of the welfare we have today. Like, if you replace all the welfare we have, like Social Security, Medicare, and replace it all with UBI, it will be a better alternative as a whole.
Have you experienced bigotry within libertarian or the liberal movement? And if you have, has it been less or more as opposed to the American community as a whole?
We have to understand that bigots come from all political backgrounds, whether it be conservative, liberal, or libertarianism. So just like I have faced.
Assad, your mic is out again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's better now.
Okay, so you have to understand that there are bigots in all political movements, whether it be liberalism, conservatism, or libertarianism. So just like I have faced bigotry within liberalism and conservatism, I have faced bigotry within libertarianism. I wouldn't say it's necessarily an increase, because, like I say, everybody is an individual. So I wouldn't judge the whole movement based on the actions of a few individuals. So there have been a few individuals within the libertarian movement that have expressed bigotry towards me simply because of the fact that I'm a Muslim. Some of them even expressed that I can't be a libertarian solely because I'm a Muslim. But those, like I said, those are the actions of a few, not the actions of the many libertarians that have supported me. And in fact, I have found other Muslim libertarians within the libertarian movement that have done a lot for the liberty.
There's a group called Libertarians for Liberty, I think it is, or Muslims for Liberty. Muslims for Liberty, right?
Yeah, Muslims for Liberty.
Can you explain that group a little bit for people?
Muslims for Liberty is a libertarian group. I'm not really a part of it, but to my knowledge, it's a libertarianism group designed to help create the gap between the Muslim community and the liberty movement as a whole, to give a form of representation to the Muslim community, to the Muslim community within the liberty movement.
So, if you wanted to bottle up the major takeaways from this conversation, what would they be?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Like, if you wanted to tell people the main things you want them to take away from the conversation, the most important things, what would they be in a quick minute or two?
So basically, some of the things I want you to take away from this conversation is that I want you to understand that that Muslims are not just limited to liberalism or progressivism. The Muslims could be part of any political movement. They could be conservatives. They could be libertarians. Hell, they could even be anarchists. But I'm personally not an anarchist. I'm a libertarian. Muslims could practically be any people. They could be any type of people. They don't necessarily have to be a certain person, right? They could be the person you work out with in the gym, the person that you meet at, the person that you meet at like a restaurant, or the person you meet at the library, right? They could be an average person. They don't necessarily have to fit this stereotype that most people see. They're just human like anybody else.
If you could give people 3 to 5 different sources of either movies or books or music, any type of media that would help them understand your views of the world, either libertarianism or Islam, what would you recommend?
It could be any books, any music.
Yeah, anything. Just what would you recommend people consume to understand your views of the world better?
I do read a lot of Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman is a good author that I recommend to all of you. Another author I'd recommend is John Locke. John Locke is also a really good author too. Also, I don't know if you guys are into TV shows. There's one good TV show on Hulu called Rami. It goes deep into a story about an American Muslim, and I feel like it's an accurate and I feel like it's something that I could relate to as an American Muslim. So if you want to hear a story about an American Muslim, it's not based on a true story. It's just a comedy fictional show. I recommend watching that show. It's on Hulu.
Thank you, Asad, for your time. This was a good conversation. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you soon.